Hello, Trekkies and Trekkers. Welcome to this amazing Star Trek podcast on Trek Tuesday. I'm your host, Dorinda, and I recap every 2 weeks an episode of Star Trek TNG. Today we recap the episode Sarek. But first, a note of the host of this podcast. In the next few episodes, I will be joined by Rebecca, and she will recap with me the episodes. Hopefully, I can count her in as my regular guest for this episode. I would appreciate it if you'd like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends and family. And now for the plot of the episode. Federation Ambassador Sarek of Vulcan has arrived on board the Enterprise with his human wife Perrin. His mission is to attend a conference to lay the foundations for trade relations between the Federation and an alien race called the Legarians. After which time he will retire due to the old age. Though Captain Jean-Luc Picard and his crew attempt to provide for Sarek and have arranged for a chamber music concert for him, the ambassador expresses apprehension and annoyance. Picard is surprised when Sarek starts crying in the middle of the performance, an emotional trait Vulcans normally suppressed. Across the ship, the crew member starts to act with uncharacteristic hostility towards one another, leading to a large brawl in the 10 forward lounge. The onset of the event is tied to Sarek's arrival. Ship's counselor Troy and Chief Medical Officer Beverly Crusher believe Sarek may be suffering from Bendaya syndrome, a degenerative neurological disease that only affects aged Vulcans. This condition causes individuals to lose control of their emotions and emit broadcast empathy, destabilizing the emotion of others around them. Picard attempts to approach Sarek about this, but Sarek's aides deny that there are any problems. Picard actually telling Commander Data to speak with Saccard, Sarek's second assistant, who has mutual respect with Data. Data confirms that Saccard had been attempting to channel his emotional strength into Sarek, but has been overwhelmed by the pressures of the conference. Picard directly confronts Sarek on the matter, who attempts to deny the problem. When Sarek breaks from emotionally in front of Picard realizes they may need to cancel the conference. As Picard prepares to cancel with the Legarians, Perrin arrives and suggested an alternative option. Sarek could mind meld with another, allowing him to temporarily transfer his emotions onto someone else. This would leave Sarek able to successfully complete the conference and maintain his dignity, reputation, and honor. Sarek, however, warns of the possibility dangers to the receiver's mind from Sarek's strong emotions. Picard willingly agrees to be the host. Sarek performs a mind meld with Picard and is able to retain full control of his emotions for the duration of the conference. However, Picard, monitored closely by Dr. Crusher, suffered through the numerous emotions that Sarek has penned up for years, including his regrets of not being able to show his love for his first wife Amanda, their son Spock, or his current wife Perrin. With the conference successfully completed, Sarek prepares to take his leave. Picard let Perrin know of Sarek's love for her, and Perrin says she has always known it. Sarek thanks Picard for his kindness, and with deep respect states, "We will always retain the best part of the other inside us." So, we are going to rewatch this episode. I hope you do too. And then we will be able to recap it. Stay tuned. Don't go away. Well, guys, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, Rebecca. So, welcome back, everyone. And I'd like to introduce you to Rebecca. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello.
Welcome to the Girls Talking Track. And, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Right. So my name is Rebecca, and you can find me on the social media platform formerly known as Twitter as Anna on the Moon. I live in England. I am, as you can tell from my accent, I'm American, but I've been in England now for 15 years. And yeah, I really love Star Trek. If you want to know anything about Beverly Crusher or Gates McFadden, I'm your girl.
Have you ever listened to her podcast of Beverly?
Yes.
I love it. I love that podcast. And my first cosplay was of Beverly Crusher.
Nice.
And the fun part was she and Dave Schultz came to the Dutch Comic Con in Utrecht. And they were my first two Star Trek celebrities I ever met. And at that time I already had a steampunk version of Dr. Crusher.
Cool.
And like Dr. Crusher, I tapped dance. So I put my tapped shoes on the side of it, and she saw that, and she was saying, "Hey, the dancing doctor," and it is not me.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, she's very sweet, and so it's that. We just talked about it already. We have been going to Destination Star Trek here in England, but do you cosplay as well?
You're cosplaying, so I kind of do sort of like, do you know how like Disney Bound is what they do at like Walt Disney World, where adults can't wear the costumes, but you can make yourself look like the character? So I kind of do that. Like I've got a rockabilly 50s style dress that's blue and black, and so I call that my Dr. Crusher dress uniform. And I've made myself like a Star Trek Enterprise. Like instead of wearing the boiler suit, I made like a little blue dress, and things like that, because I don't do trousers, and the scants are just a little too tight for me.
I must say, I do have the scans, but what my problem is always with the latex 1 or 2 parters uniform, because I'm small, and that doesn't make any sense me to wearing it.
Yeah, I'm quite short as well, so yeah, like buying a uniform that somebody else has made, it would need so many alterations, and so I just put my own little twist on things.
Yeah, I love to do that too. Yeah, but
I think it's more fun that way.
It is in a way, yeah. And I don't know if you have seen my profile photo on Facebook, but we have actually been having a Star Trek wedding.
That's awesome.
So, I put the medical science dress on from Discovery Comics. So that's a different one then. And my husband wears the Pike uniform.
Oh, how cool.
And I don't know him. I can't remember because you thought we have met on Destination Star Trek 2018. You said?
I'm sure, yeah.
I can't remember but he surprised me. I bought him a Captain Pike uniform, and I had the number 1 uniform. And but he surprised me to really shaved his beard off and cut his hair short just to look like Anson Mount.
Oh, that's great.
And I was like, oh, that was so sweet of you. I didn't expect that, So how did you come into contact with Star Trek? I'm curious about that.
I mean, to be fair, pretty much from the beginning of TNG.
Me too.
I was 8 when TNG started.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the original series vaguely, like bits and pieces of it, and whichever films were out by then, because the motion picture came out the year I was born. So, my dad liked Star Trek, so it was like our thing to watch together. So I watched TNG from, the age of 8 until that ended. Watched a good portion of DS9 when it first aired, but then when I went to university, kind of didn't watch it that much because it was really hard to like get control of the communal television. So kind of didn't watch for a couple of years, and then by the time I got out of university, I was then like trying to play catch up on all of the series that I missed, because I had completely missed Voyager during its first run because I was at university and then starting a job and all that. So talking
about Deep Space Nine and Voyager, do you know the podcast of the Delta Flyers?
Yeah. I've not really listened to it, but I know it exists.
Well, that is where I a bit have looked of it, because they also recapping episodes, but they recapping it from the actor point of view. And so the Delta Flyers has been hosted by Garrett Wang and Robert Duncan McNeil, who played Paris and Kim. But now they start recapping Deep Space Nine, and they do that together with Terry Farrell and Armin Shimmerman. And
neat. Okay.
I must say it's really nice to hear what they say as from an actor point of view, and of course they can remember what happened and who the actors are, etc. So they tell you the ins and outs of that episode.
That sounds neat.
And well, that's what I was doing with Girls Talking Track 2. I recapped the episode with someone, and I talk about the female point of view, because a lot of podcasts, track podcasts, it's been made by men.
Yep.
So that was my thoughts about, okay, let's do Girls Talking Track, and let's see.
Yeah. One of my best friends and I, we actually started the Facebook group Feminist Trek. We started it a couple of years ago because, like you said, there was nothing out there for women to really talk about Star Trek without having someone come in and try and, put us down for liking it.
Yeah, I have that experience too, and especially in the Netherlands, because in the Netherlands we don't have really Star Trek groups or events. Like here in England, it's a bit better, and of course in America, it's a lot better. And I hope we can join what is on our bucket list is Star Trek Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing.
And the cruise, of course.
Yeah.
But okay, that's just in the future.
Yeah. When I win the lottery.
Yeah, something like that. So I think in all those years, do you have a favorite series or movie from Star Trek?
It has to be The Next Generation. It's just been such a huge part of my life.
I have to say,
you know, I look at that, like the crew, like they're like my family. You know, like I always joke.
Yes.
You know, we joke that like that Gates is like Space Mom. You know, and Patrick is Space Dad. And,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. And I don't know if this counts for you as well. So your favorite series is TNG?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I had exactly the same experience in following of getting acquainted with Star Trek. And that's awesome in a way. But what I was saying, I don't know if this counts for you too. It's about that Star Trek has pulled me through a lot of dark times.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those things, isn't it? It's always there for, you know.
Yeah, but it's like what you said. The crew is somewhat your family, and I always have the experience that Star Trek gives you hope, no matter what you are, no matter what. Like I said, for most people, we're geeks, and we're not belong to somewhere, and we just. With Star Trek, you don't have to be afraid of that. Because you are one big family.
Yeah, it's, you know, I feel like the community as well as watching the show, it definitely just gives you that space to be free in a way. And you know, and if you're upset, it's always like, you know, oh, I'll just put on this favorite episode, and you know.
Yeah. Well, I think it's time for us to start recapping the episode, and I must say this has always have been one of my favorite episodes. I don't know if this also is for you.
I mean, I generally tended to, my favorite episodes are probably the ones that have a lot of Beverly or Wesley in them, but I definitely enjoy this episode. You know, there's no episode, no, I lie. There are episodes that I dislike, but you know, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. Well, so, the Enterprise is at the Vulcan, and they are beaming up Sarek and his wife Perrin. And of course, Perrin is his second wife. What I was right away thinking, why has Sarek chosen another human as wife?
Yeah, that was one of those, that is interesting. Yeah, I can't even speak.
Well, I think that was it. In the last scene, we we see that Picard is telling Perrin that Sarek had regret that he couldn't open more up in his emotions of loving his first wife Amanda and his son Spock, but also to her. So he must be really in love with her than that we think.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's still, at this point, we still don't know a lot about the Vulcans. In general, I mean, we had Spock from the original series, and that was about it. So obviously they must feel love because they managed to marry people and have children and things like that. So there must be some level of love there, but then because they're so just like closed off with their emotions, it does make it hard to sort of figure it out.
Yeah, but they have, but in the Vulcan culture they have arranged marriages. So in one way, I think they could have a lot of disclosure in that way because they don't have to love their wife in that way. And it reminds me a lot of in the other countries here on Earth who has arranged marriages, etc. And I think a lot of Western people can't imagine to have an arranged marriage.
That's very true. Yeah. It's definitely something that I think I would, I don't even know how I would handle that if, I had been told that I was marrying someone and I had no choice in it.
And you never met him.
I mean, I do know some people who have had that, happen for them. But yeah, I don't know how I would handle. I mean, I guess though, if you grew up with that as your culture, then you might be okay with it.
I don't know. Maybe some people would, but I know a lot of other people who won't. And I speak that from out of experience as from my Asian side because I'm half Dutch, half Indonesian, and in Indonesia it's a lot of common that people are been having arranged marriage by their parents or by the village elder, and
okay.
But personally, I'm a free soul, so
yeah.
And then Picard and Riker are walking to the transporter room because they will welcoming Perrin and Sarek. And Picard is telling Riker of that he met the Vulcan delegations as a young cadet. And he made the remark of, well, in that process I was a grinning fool. And
yeah,
it I had this image in my head of how Picard would be as a young cadet. I mean, of course, we have seen a little bit of how he lost his heart, etc., having a bar fight with the Notion, etc. But yeah, I had this image of a young Picard who trying his best to be noticed by the Vulcans, but he is grinning like a fool and an idiot and try to be noticed in a way.
But and then it also makes you wonder, how did Picard wind up at like Spock's wedding?
Yeah.
You're like, how were you there? Like, you didn't know Spock back then, but obviously I guess he was just part of the delegation from Starfleet that was there. But yeah, I can just picture him just being kind of like starstruck.
Yeah, it was. And but did you notice through the whole episodes, Picard was still a bit starstruck of Sarek.
Yeah.
It was really. Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say that, yeah, he was definitely, there's a bit of hero worshipping going on there. And even to a bit with Perrin as well. Like, he seemed to also be a bit in awe of her.
Yeah, it is. But there's one note I still want to make about this scene. Picard has still hair!
Did he?
Yes! Yeah. He did. I think, yeah, it's still season 3, so he's still in that time, he still has some hair.
Yeah, hasn't yet lost it all.
So the first two who are beamed over to the Enterprise are the two assistants of Sarek. And they were a bit of protective about Sarek. And I think a lot of, you could see right away, notice right away, that there was something wrong with Sarek.
Yeah, they were just so overprotective of him when they showed up, and and obviously Picard, and they weren't expecting these two people. They were expecting it to be Sarek and Perrin, and so it was like, why are you here?
Well, I think it was more also like, okay, we know them, but that the what's his name? One of the what was his name? Saker?
Which one? It was Saket was the
Saket was the really Vulcan, but he was the one who tried to guide Sarek's emotions to and that was because in one way I didn't like him just because how he was to the crew of the Enterprise and Captain Picard, and but the weird thing again is he had a admiration and idolation, if I can say it like that, for Data.
Yeah, he definitely seemed to. But then again, if you really consider the fact that as an android, Data doesn't, he's a bit Vulcan-like in his emotional state, so perhaps that kind of like drew him in.
Yeah, indeed, I think that's but I think we have noticed that a lot more in like the Romulans and the Vulcan, as they if they meet Data, they are impressed with him having no feelings.
Yeah, but then also he kind of dismissed Counselor Troy. He was like, "Oh, well, she's not a true telepath."
Yeah,
and it was just very much like he was saying she doesn't matter.
I had that feeling too. Yeah, it was just he thought he was more schooled in telepathy, etc., and because Troy was just a half beta set, that didn't count for him in a way.
Yeah, it was just really dismissive. He was like, she doesn't count.
But in one way, it was nice to see that Troy had a bit more screen time and role in this episode because, of course, because of Sarek, there were a lot of violent things going on, especially, of course, in 10 Forward. And, that is a point, of course, that we come back later on. So we those two have been beamed to the Enterprise, and they exactly saying, well, the ambassador will not having recreation of official time or whatever because he needs to have his speech before the conference. And then Sarek and Perrin beamed to the Enterprise, and so Picard and Riker welcomed them, etc., etc., etc. And Perrin is asking right away, Captain, can you take us to our quarters because my husband has to rest. But Sarek, and right away I was thinking, he's a Vulcan, but also he's a grumpy old fool.
Yeah.
So,
but also you get the point that, like, obviously he doesn't think there's anything wrong with him, because his wife and his assistant and his whatever the other guy was, that none of them have been like, oh hey, you don't look so well, and so he's like, oh no, I want to do this, and everyone else with him is like, no, you don't. But yeah, he was I definitely got that grumpy old git kind of vibe off of him. And the one thing I also thought was interesting is he's always like, let me introduce, she who is my wife.
Yeah.
And then like later on, he's like, my wife. And it's like, could you not just call her by her name?
Yeah, but that's again the Vulcan tradition, and that's what I had that fight. I had that through the whole episode. Because of his illness, you see a lot of emotions that's coming out. And I do think we see here what happens when Vulcan don't process their emotions as we as humans do. And I remember, and that's what I love about Star Trek Strange New World, is that we see a young Spock who is really coping with his human side as well as his Vulcan side.
Yeah.
And I had this feeling that it's you could see that in this episode with Sarek as well. But I think, and we see that later as well, that Sarek has immense respect for Picard. And also in his career, what later comes out.
Yeah, because he says, doesn't he mention something about he followed his career, or Perrin tells Picard that Sarek followed his career or something like that?
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly who said it, but I know it was mentioned that, like, Sarek, followed this guy. It's like, why, what? Like, to me that always hit me as just kind of, not necessarily strange, but just sort of like, why did you follow this person's career who you don't know? But, but then again, we do know that Picard's done a lot in his career so far that probably got him a lot of attention, so...
I think there's also a bit of like the diplomatic missions Picard is doing. Well,
yeah,
and that's what I always have said. How farther we are going to come into the seasons, how more diplomatic Picard has become.
Yeah,
and that's what I always love about the background episodes of characters. For example, with Worf, for Worf, he is more not only his captain, but also his Chadich. And
yeah,
you see how that he is more. I don't know what the writers have been thinking about that, but we do see how far we're coming into the season, how more Picard becomes diplomatic.
Yeah. But I also feel...
Yeah?
I was going to say, also with this, I mean, the Federation wouldn't have him do this if they didn't think he was, good at being a diplomat already. So
I think that comes a bit with because the Enterprise D is the flagship of the fleet.
Yeah.
Talking
so
about...
they weren't going to put someone in charge if they weren't capable.
But I think Picard is the most, one of the captains that has most diplomatic first contact missions, or diplomatic missions between like a mediator between species. What I want to say, talking about the Enterprise D, currently my husband is building the, I don't know if you have ever seen it, but there is a model of the Enterprise D. You can build that. It was started with Eagle Moss, but ended up with Fenholm.
Yeah, so did somebody else buy it so that they could continue it?
It's now from Fenholm, and so this model is about 70 centimeters long, 27 inch. It's a big one. We only have one issue to go, so next month it will be finished. If you like to see the progress on Facebook, I have a photo album with the progress all on it. So it's a big one, and of course the Enterprise D has always have a special place in my heart. So if you say which starship would be my, I don't want to say favorite, but special, then I always would be saying Enterprise D. But it is almost ready, and we have no idea where we're going to put it because it is that big. It is ouch, really. I will send you a picture of it, of the last issue. Then you can see how big it is. And of course we have a doggy, so we have to put it somewhere that he can get to it. And that's gonna be fun.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I mean, I'm just picturing this giant ship, and I'm thinking like, in my house as well, I wouldn't know where to put something that size. I've got 2 cats. Like, I'm lucky that they can't figure out how to get onto the shelf where we've got like a Lego space shuttle, because they'd have that thing destroyed if they could reach it.
Let me see. So we see exactly that Sarek is very emotional in every way you can think. But there was also another scene in the beginning. We see Geordi and Wesley are working in some kind of a container. And in the second scene with them, they were fighting over something. And that was all. You already could see that this was the influence Sarek had on the ship.
Yeah, because obviously the two of them wouldn't fight with each other normally, especially because it was like they were fighting over the fact that Wesley had a date.
Yeah.
I mean, and Geordi's, pathetic love life.
Hey, he ended up good. He had 2 daughters.
Yeah. But, he kind of doesn't have the greatest history with love life, in TNG. But, yeah, it's just very... But, of course, at the time, we don't know why they're fighting. We don't know that it's, Sarek's influence over them. We're just kind of like, what?
Yeah, indeed. And it's just like, why the hell are you fighting? And even that bra in 10 Forward, that was ridiculous. And even...
Oh, that was crazy.
Yeah, guys,
Because first you think it's all handled because, Geordi breaks it up between the, engineers and the scientists. And then all of a sudden, Riker opens the doors and it's like, oh, there's a huge bar fight.
Yeah, it's it's so stupid, and it's on for a stupid reason as well.
Yeah, you're at my table. Oh God, get over it. But then Beverly, she gets mad at Wesley, and she smacks him, and it's like, oh. Like, that's not something that she would do. Even if she was mad at him, she would never do that.
No, that's...
even,
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think that is what, when then Beverly went to talk with Troy about it, and that's why they found out that it is Sarek who influenced this, and that's what I the first time I saw that, when Beverly smacked Wesley, I was in kind of state of shock because I never thought she would do that.
Yeah, but, like, it was at that point, that was when, I mean, not that we didn't know before, but this was the point where it was like, okay, something's really seriously going on. Because bar fights, I mean, you don't really expect people in the military to get into a bar fight, but, they happen. But to have, Beverly do that, you were just like, uh-oh.
Yeah, but it was also with a stupid reason again. She was angry that Wesley didn't go to the concert. And talking about the concert, I have a lot of things to say about that. Okay, first thing about the concert. When Data and the three other musicians started to play, two of them didn't move. There was music, but their hands didn't move on the violin.
I saw that. I was like, oh.
And I was thinking, dude, do something, You're...
At least just, like, pretend. Move your arm a bit.
And that was one thing weird, too, because I know Khomeini, who played Miles O'Brien, really played the cello, and I found it stupid that he didn't play the cello.
Yeah, that is kind of dumb. Like, if you've got someone on the crew who, well, on the, oh my God, words? Actors, there we go. If you've got one of the actors that plays the instrument, maybe you should have them do it.
Yeah, because I can't remember in what interview that was, but Cohn was saying, I actually composed some music for Star Trek in the episode. There were some pieces that only he played the cello, and that is what the thing he composed for it. So when I saw that person who played cello, I was thinking, why not Miles O'Brien?
Yeah.
And when they started to play, had you seen the face of Data? Data was really like an android. Normally he has more feelings with it, but this time, and what I noticed is that his skin was very grey.
He did look very gray.
That was also weird. I don't know if the directors were trying things out, trying new things. I don't know. But it was really that I was thinking, it is the mood of Sarek.
Yeah. It was almost like it was bringing almost, even though it wasn't necessarily affecting Data, it was almost like it was bringing him down.
Yeah. And that was the face said it all. So there was that moment that they played a sad part, and Sarek started to cry.
Yeah.
And one of his assistants and Troy noticed that. And even Picard saw that Sarek was crying. And as soon as Perrin noticed that, Sarek and Perrin left the concert. And I think even Beverly Crusher have said that to Captain Picard too. I noticed too that he was crying. And Vulcans don't cry.
Yeah, I think, because Deanna's face also sort of showed as if she noticed something was going on as well. So whatever was going on, it was definitely, noticeable to multiple people.
Yeah. So we coming to the point that Beverly and Diana Troy figured things out. What is really happening with Sarek? And it wasn't even that the occasion with Wesley and Beverly. So Diana was asking more questions to Beverly, and then they found out that Diana Troy couldn't have sensed anything with the people that were coming to her, but she noticed that there are 10 more people who had a similar violent scene. And it makes me also thinking, and I think Picard confronted Perrin and especially Sarek with the disease of what is happening, what's really going on, and we see that Sarek completely lost control over his emotions.
Yeah, he sort of starts out by trying to be like, nope, I'm fine. Everything's fine, don't worry. And then Picard kind of points out, like, yeah, that's because your assistant there is helping you out. And then Sarek just kind of goes, are you? And I think that's kind of the point where he lost his control, is because he told his assistant to stop what he was doing.
Yeah, and because it didn't have the effect as normal, because the Sarek would do one more thing for the Federation as an ambassador, is setting up this for a trade with the Federation and what they called?
Lagarans.
Yeah, exactly. And he was so under stress that he couldn't, his assistant couldn't help him anymore. And so Picard was also came to the conclusion that he had to cancel the conference because of Sarek's state.
Which makes sense, because if Sarek couldn't keep it together, there's no way he'd be able to carry out a diplomatic agreement. And since he didn't want Picard to stand in for him, what else are you going to do?
Yeah. And just before Picard wanted to cancel it, Perrin came to him and said, well, there is a solution, but it's not going to be good. So they said that they could do a mind meld. And I think this is the first time in TNG we see how dangerous a mind meld is.
Yeah. Well, it's the first time we've had a Vulcan on TNG.
No,
and I'm not. I think so. And I'm not as well versed in the original series, so I don't know if Spock ever did one. I mean, I've seen the original series, but I'm not as obsessed with it as I am with TNG.
I believe Spock did in TOS, but it was more like getting information from quote unquote.
There was never this like, oh, we're gonna share our emotions, we'll be like one person, and
they did it totally different in Enterprise with T'Pol.
Yeah.
So Picard offers himself up to do this mind meld with Sarek, and he asked Beverly to monitor him. But I always thought of there's a hint of them being a romantic couple.
Oh, I could go on and on. I think it shows that he has so much trust in her.
Yeah.
I realize that, yes, she's the chief medical officer, so naturally, like, he would, but when you think about it, if this had been season 2, he wouldn't have let Pulaski sit there with him.
No!
So we definitely, trusted Beverly to look after him, and then later on not make a big deal out of everything that went on.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing of Beverly, she is being a badass in Star Trek Picard season 3.
She's awesome.
She is awesome. But I think she has so much development from if you see in TNG, the movies, and then in Picard. I think I don't know what the writers were thinking. But okay.
I mean, she was barely in the film, so anything was gonna be an improvement.
And now I got that picture in front of me with when Q came to the Enterprise and put them in the Sherwood Forest as Robin Hood.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, TNG has some of a good laugh and episodes. So, Picard has gone through a tumult of emotions, etc. And so Sarek can do his job as an ambassador, and everything was normal. And then Sarek, Sarek and Perrin are going back to Vulcan, and Picard is saying goodbye to them.
Yeah.
And that was the moment that Picard told Perrin, so that Sarek has regret, etc., etc. And then Sarek comes in, thanked. But did you notice the mutual admiration and I don't want to say friend because I think in that way, what is his name from Enterprise? Sofak, right? I can't remember, but it was a mutual respect.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit though that like when Sarek first walks onto the bridge, and he calls Riker number one, and all this, and then he's like, "Oh, I am myself again," and I'm just like, "Oh no!" Like, there's that brief moment in my head where I'm thinking, "Oh no, what if they can't reverse this?"
Yeah.
Like.
Oh, you remember that episode in was that Discovery? Yeah, that was Discovery. That Spock and T'Pring has switched in their bodies.
Yeah.
Same thing. What are you thinking of?
You're just like, oh, like when that happened, when Sarek was like, I feel like myself again. And you're like, uh-oh.
Yeah, and I think the good thing of it is that you see how two different, and that's what I always been thinking, because of course Spock is a half human, half Vulcan, but I'm thinking, I get the feeling also that because Sarek is dealing a lot with humans, that he is a bit more human himself.
Yeah. Or maybe it's because he's had human wives, so he's like picked up a little.
Oh, that's for sure. Because, and I'm not a fan of the J.J. Abrams movies, but there was a point in one of the movies, I think it was the first one, that you see that Spock has been fighting with classmates because they were picking on him. And
yeah.
Then he was sitting there with Sarek and he was asking, Dad, why did you marry a human? And Sarek's answer was, well, in the first go it was logical, but second of all, I really love your mother. And I can imagine that when Amanda died in that tragedy, I'm thinking, how would Sarek really been reacted on that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously he had some emotions. He had to have been. There has been some kind of remorse. Otherwise, I don't know. I mean, oh well, you're dead. Okay, move on. I mean, that's not.
No, I think it's one way that he will have emotions because he truly loved her, and I think, and that's what I always have said, the bond between Sarek and his wife, you could say that it is a lot similar between humans. of course, it's a bit more stiff and emotionless than we have, but there are moments that they really show their love for one another.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, even in human relationships, there are some that are just the way that Sarek's relationship was. They're not always full of I'm trying to think what word I want to use here. They're not always lovey-dovey and things like that. Like sometimes they are just like, oh, you're my companion. Like, yeah, we do stuff together and we're married. So I think it's not so far-fetched when you think about his relationships, but it also just feels really strange to think that this Vulcan is married to a human, and then to think that the human his wives were like fully accepting of his emotionless state.
Yeah. Well, guys, this is also the end scene of this episode. Rebecca, what do you think in general of this episode?
I mean, it wasn't my favorite, but it also definitely was better than a lot of other episodes. I think what I really enjoyed is like Patrick Stewart's acting when he was being the emotional side of Sarek. That just, to me, that was just brilliant. Absolutely incredible acting on his part. And then, and I did kind of wish that they had maybe like resolved a couple of the other conflicts. Like, I would have liked to have seen Geordi and Wesley going, yeah, sorry, mate. And then like Beverly apologizing to Wes for hitting him, and like the guy that punched. You know what I mean? Like, I would have liked to have seen some closure for those incidents, but but obviously they just ran out of time.
So if I'm taking a look at the IMDb rating on IMDb, it's an 8.1. What would you rate it from 1, the bad, and 10, the greatest?
As compared to the whole entirety of TNG, or just...
No, just this episode. Just this episode. What do you rate it?
I would probably give it a 7 or an 8.
Yeah. I'm comfortable, yeah.
It was a good episode.
Yeah.
There were things in it that obviously, as I say, I wish they had addressed. But it was definitely a good episode, and it was also, I think, was this the like second time really that they sort of tied it back into the original series. Because we had the brief we had Bones briefly in the very first episode, but then so it was kind of nice to then like have this other tie back into the original series. So it's kind of so kind of like, yes, this is Star Trek, these people are here. And then also to have Picard further tie himself into it by saying that he was at Spock's wedding, and it was like, well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, well, guys, we are at the end of this episode. Rebecca, thank you very much for joining me. I have had a blast.
Thank you for having me on.
And I think we will see each other or talk to each other. Well, next week is the recording, and then in about 2 weeks it will go online. So the next episode we're going to recap is Manage at Troy. Yippee-yay! Luxana!
Hey, the Ferengi are back.
Yeah, and Luxana.
Wait, back or is it the first? No, yeah, back, yeah. They were. I guess like because I've seen TNG so many times, I'm like, wait, were they? I can't remember. Then I'm like, yes, because Battle was in season 1 when they had the Stargazer. So yeah, so this will be the second time that we'll see the Ferengi.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining me, and we will talk soon again.
Yes. Absolutely. I had a great time.
Me too. Thank you guys for listening, and join us in 2 weeks for a new episode recap. In the next episode, we will recap the episode Manage a Troy. Ghost Talking Trek is to listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, on the Facebook group, or the YouTube channel. I want to invite you to the YouTube channel or the Facebook group so we can discuss each episode. And what do you guys think about a live discussion show once in a while? Let me know in the comment section on YouTube or the Facebook group. We will see you in 2 weeks. Live long and prosper!